Oh, I see.
Old Roy showed up. He's got lots of good stories. Calling that thing a piece of shit. And he's right. Anyway, we're gonna go back, listen to some more stories. Life is good, isn't it, Rover? Oh, you want a treat? Okay, I'll give you a treat, bud. I'll give you a treat. So Roy headed back to his camp, and I went over and decided to party with the neighbors for the night. There's our neighbor campers over there. We don't know who they are, but we might know them soon. This is pretty much it. There's my bottles. That one's from 1968 right there. That one. There's ketchup bottles, Dubbies. There was tons of this stuff out there. And I actually found a picture of this cabin that I had. I didn't realize it was the same spot, and then we were looking at it, Andy pointed it out, and it was the same cabin. So that we actually have a picture of the cabin, which I'll edit into this video. There's an old peanut butter jar. Kraft peanut butter. They didn't pack their garbage out in those days. There's an old Coke one. They just put them threw them over the bank. They don't do that anymore, but that's what they did back then. Old flashlight. Okay, well, we're cleaning up camp. We'll make it nice and tidy and stack all the wood and everything. Every piece of garbage will be picked up. Yeah, we're gonna pack up old Team China. I got it full of fuel. The oil's good. Little Mac is running again, by the way. Fired right up the other day. I cut with it last night. Running great. It must have just got soaked from sitting outside, so I won't do that again. I'll put a little cover over it. And then I got about 100-kilometer drive home. What's that, 60 miles, 65 miles, something like that? 100 kilometers. I was going to take trails, but I better not because I got to work. So if I didn't have to work tomorrow, I would cut my way home on trails, like just fix a few more trails up. Well, that's a wrap. I'll probably finish stocking up the wood, and that's about it. There's a couple little things laying around I'll pick up. There goes Andy in the old toy hauler / Dodge. 05 Dodge Cummins. It looks pretty good. That's the only thing about triple axles, they skid the tires a bit, but it's nothing to worry about. That's a really nice toy hauler. It works good. Okay, we're all packed up and ready to go. Quite a bit lighter than the first time, but we still got some weight. Those 2 gas cans are full right there. I used up all the rest. Oh, and I have one other 10-liter. So I have 20, 40, I have 50 liters left, and this full tank will get me home. I'll have a little bit left over. So got the camp all nice and cleaned up. Stacked all the wood, picked up all the little garbage. Oh, there's another piece I'll pick up. You know, I just do a little cleanup. There's another something. You know, just all this little junk. Pick it all up. That's a good job for the kids. Looks like they did a pretty darn good job, actually. It's all nice and clean. That's the way you leave the camp, you know. Firewood stacked. We fell a tree there. They've got more to buck up when they show up, so we'll make it easy for them. They're gonna have a lot of wood here. Whoever the next campers are. Okay, well, I'm gonna head home, see how long it takes me. Hopefully Team China gets us there. Well, I'm gonna go visit their Roy and Molly, see what they're up to. There's their camp. Well, it was a pretty darn good trip. Andy headed home with his family, and I'm going to see Roy and Molly, see what they're up to. And then I'm gonna head home. Long drive. Probably gonna take me, if I don't stop, I'm gonna guess about 4 hours maybe? 5 hours? I'm not sure. We'll find out. So I've got this old picture, and it says Grave Flats, Kootenay Plains, and it's wrong. It's actually here, but they're mislabeling it. And I think what's happened is you know, somebody had a picture from the 50s and 60s, and then the parents die, and the kids just kind of say where they thought it was, and then that's how it gets put in the history books. But looking at this here, I'll try to put the other picture in. It's not in the right spot. I'll be going up there soon at that actual spot. But I'm thinking this campsite that I'm looking for is going to be right over there. So I'm hoping I can go maybe find an old fire pit or something over there. We'll go see. So there's the old grave that Roy painted. He only had enough to do the one side, but he painted it all to help keep it alive. And he wants to put a grave marker here because there's nothing there. There is the cross, but there's no markings on it. He feels that it should, and I agree with him. He feels that it should be marked, right? And I heard that it's Mary Cardinal's grave, but I don't know that for sure. I'm just going by what I think I know from the history books. So apparently it was Mary Cardinal's father's grave, and he was the Stoney Indian chief. So here we are, Grave Flats. There's where we're quadding all up in those hills. Okay, well this is the spot for sure. And it makes sense because this is where the well, this is still an old sign. But anyway, this is where the old sign would have been. I was just kind of looking around to see if maybe they just left it in the ground. I don't see it anywhere. Because back in those days, this road wasn't punched through all the way through in 1969. So there was just this sign that said Grave Flats Creek, and that's where they're standing, I believe. Okay, so it shows a camp over here in this corner. Now I have camped. There's a camp right there. And I guess it maybe could be that one. It seems like they're closer in here. In the picture, it seems like there's a camper stuffed in the trees. Now these trees, I don't think were here. They're all around me. Well, they're pretty young, right? But they wouldn't have went down there. Possibly in here, they could have been camped because you can see the sign out there. That's where I took the picture from. And so, to me, like in the picture, actually it may even be farther, just over on this dip. Actually, yeah, let's go look at that. They wouldn't have come here. There's another spot they could have come in. And there, like I say, there is a camp there. It's a little farther up. I think it's going to be, if anywhere, right by those trees, which those are pretty big now. In the picture, I think they're younger. Hopefully nobody's camped here. I don't think anybody is. Looks like they're right in this corner. Because that's what it looks like. Ooh, this would be a beautiful camp spot. Let's see if we find some old fire pit. I've never walked over here before. Wouldn't that be neat? If there's a... Oh yeah, that's a big old tree. So, and like those trees wouldn't have been there in front of me. So I'm gonna just look around and see. But this would be a sweet little spot to set up a camp anyways, just in here. But I think this is possibly where they were. You can see some old trees cut off. That doesn't mean anything. That could be just somebody else that was getting firewood. But these trees would have been there. These big ones are obviously would have been there in 1969. That's when that picture was taken. I'm gonna scour around. Be surprised at things you find here. A lot of people don't go off the beaten path, so they don't find anything, right? You gotta go and look where nobody goes. But that definitely could have been where this trailer was. Okay, now this looks like a perfect ring here. The grass is kind of dead there. I'm gonna do some kicking around, see if I can find stones under there, because they get buried from the pine needles and everything over the years. But wouldn't that be cool? It makes sense because there's the sign. You can see the campers in the background. Well, there it is, Grave Flats Creek. And we did find a fire pit right over there last time we were here, May long. So this was what they called Grave Flats Trail. So now there's some spots up in the trees there, but that road wasn't punched in till the 90s. It was a trail. So I'm wondering if this here, because there is a trail along the river, and that's where they traveled with horses. I'm wondering if this was the original, this was all that was here, and maybe the sign was actually over in this section here somewhere, like actually right on the edge of this bank, and then somebody was just camped over there. Be cool if we could find a sign post or something where it was, but I thought it was over where I showed, but maybe not. Looks like this place could use some fresh outhouse work. I see people are crapping over there. Oh, there's an old one. Oh, that's outhouse. And it might have been here, you know, because this is an old camp spot right here. But none of those trees would have been there, so you could see right through. Or even like right here. Yeah, see, here's an old fire pit right here, not being used anymore. So you never know. Makes sense because the sign's right there. So it could have just been right here off in the corner. I was just trying to find out where those campers were, if it was a different camp or not. This is all free rent. Well, now they charge you $30 to camp, but it was always free forever. Oh, he's just gonna. Is it just sitting there? Yeah. Old Roy, eh? Look at him go. So Roy and Molly headed into town, and they were going to get supplies, and I was going to start my journey home as well. We're heading back. I was talking to, met this guy. You meet so many cool people out here. Met a guy that's been riding here since the 80s, 1980, I think he said. And yeah, he's just like me, a trail geek, and he's into like clearing trails and looking for old stuff. And yeah, anyway, long story short, real cool guy. And I took his number. We're hopefully gonna, you know, talk about trails, maybe even go quadding one day and find some of these routes. Homeward bound. My suspension's sagged right out. That's where it'd be nice to have either better shocks or those rubber bumpers just for these heavy loads. Bump stops or something. You can definitely hear them bottoming out. Well, we made her over the divide. Heading towards Catamount. This is where that truck was in the ditch somewhere down in here. Beauty day. Oil pressure kind of not working, sort of working. Exhaust rattling. She's a hurt unit. That's a hell of a pull coming up the Cardinal Divide. But all my cooling mods worked actually so good that it runs too cool. I got to put a thermostat in this thing. My oil temperature never gets hot. Like, it's just perfect. Definitely help, hopefully keep that part of it reliable. So I made it all the way into the old coal mining town of Catamount. It was about a 50-kilometer drive. Met some strangers just on the outskirts of town that I stopped and talked to. And then I continued on, and there's a little section just close to town where a lot of people camp along the river. So I thought I'd take a drive in there, and I ended up running into some old friends that I hadn't seen for a long time. A couple of them I hadn't seen since I was way back in South Esk back in 2011. So I stopped and chatted with them for about a half an hour, and then I continued on. I only got about a minute down the road where a mountain biker flagged me down. Where are you from again?
Boston.
And you're going to Mexico.
Right.
That's a good run. So I gave that mountain biker guy some intel on the area, where to camp and stuff, and he had left from Banff and he'd made it to there, and then he was going to Mexico from there. Well, I stopped to put a beer can shim in the exhaust, but I could probably wedge a nail in there and make it so at least it doesn't rattle, but whatever. So the exhaust was really loud and annoying, and I stopped a few times to try and tighten it up and quiet it down a bit, but ultimately it wasn't that great all the way home. So I made it out to a road called the Tri Creeks Road, and then I decided to take another little detour. I wanted to go and check out one of my old camps. So I went to the old camp, stopped there for a bit, and took a different way home. And it was kind of a little more trails than roads. And yeah, it was kind of sad to see some of the trails were certainly getting grown in, but whatever, I was still able to pass through them, and last time I'd been on them was in 2017. And then I got heading down onto this other road, and it was starting to get cool. It was getting late in the day, so I just had my t-shirt on. So I pulled over to put my sweater on, and right at that point, somebody pulled up in a truck, and like, we're pretty much out in the middle of nowhere at this point, and Turned out it was a fellow. He was involved with the mountain bike club, and it didn't take long. We were kind of, it started out pretty good, and then it turned not so good. And at one point, I thought it was going to be like two grizzly bears duking it out in the middle of nowhere. Like, it was getting to be a pretty heated discussion, but in the end, we were able to shake hands, and that actually turned out, he actually turned out to be a pretty good guy. But he's pretty passionate about his thing, and I'm pretty passionate about our quad trails, and I'm kind of tired of losing them all the time. And I made sure he knew that, and so it was good to see. I certainly wasn't backing down on my stance, and it was good that we ended up shaking hands, and we kind of went on our way. But yeah, kind of funny thing to happen way out in the middle of nowhere. So it was getting close to 9 p.m. and I was just trying to get home. I had to work the next morning, and I took mostly logging roads, and then when I got closer to town, I got back on some quad trails, and it didn't take long before I stuck yet another stick through the floorboards. So I finally made it back, and I think it worked out to be in about 220 kilometers. I'll put on the screen what that is in miles. That's quite a distance to go. That was just to where Andy and his family were camped. But in the end, it said like 480 some kilometers, I think it was. But my speedo wasn't working for a lot of that time. I've since put a new speed sensor in it. Well, I don't believe it, but Team China made it home. And the speedo wasn't working. I'm already just about at 500 kilometers. Well, I hope you enjoyed that adventure. It was a pretty fun one for me. Going 580 kilometers, 360 miles on a Chinese side-by-side isn't as easy as it looks. There was a lot of stuff I had to do to that thing to make it somewhat reliable, but I mean, you're definitely better off to stick to a Honda or Yamaha, or like a good brand name, But it does go to show that with the right, selection of parts and the right little modifications and fixes, they can be reliable, right? But yeah, so it was a good trip. A lot of fun for me, and definitely looking forward to the next one like that. The next video, once I'm done yapping away here, the next video is going to be a trip that Andy and I did in fall of 2022, and that's when we had a pretty scary grizzly bear encounter. It could have went bad, since all we had was, both of us had expired bear spray, and I had a 22 and little Mac, my little chainsaw. That's all we had to fight off a grizzly bear if it wanted to come after us. But anyway, that was a 3-day trip, 2 or 3 day trip. We just camped on the trail on that one. It was just me and Andy, and so it's I'll show you some couple clips of that video here right away, and then but that one will be coming up shortly. So anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one. It's starting to just get tight now. Keep going, yeah. I can hear this noise over top of Andy's heater. That was not a normal noise. Like, I've spent a lot of nights in the bush, and I never heard a sound like this. It sounded like a screaming and a roar. It was not far away. It was close. It's a freaky sound. It's not a good sound to hear in the bush. For people that believe in a Sasquatch, that's definitely the sound that they would think that it would make.
See quite a ways, and there's trees down all the way.
We're gonna see how warm it gets inside.